Ladies and gentlemen, no, you're not waiting for the big one. We're right here. We've got it. Ladies and gentlemen, I can assure you, this will be one you will want to remember for a lifetime. When you think about the rock and roll singers, the female lead vocalists of the 1980s and into today, this is one of the all-time OGs. And she's back. She's back where it all started. She's got a new single. She's working on some other music. And what a trio of guitarists that she's worked with in the past year. How about this guy, Joel Hoekstra? Yeah, definitely heard of him. How about this guy, George Lynch? Yeah, he's definitely a wicked sensation. What about this guy, Steve Brown? Oh, he's only worked with this band, Def Leppard, and pretty good friends with some guy that, God rest his soul, Eddie Van Halen. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about some of those big videos. We'll talk about MTV remote control. And what about her on the same show as this guy, Adam Sandler? Yeah, we're definitely going to have a little bit of a Happy Gilmore moment. We'll also talk about maybe those ex-wives of rock and roll. We'll talk about, God rest his soul, maybe Mr. Marty calling her. Plus, who knows whatever else. She's definitely the definition of a rebel. She's definitely going to touch and go with some of these topics we'll talk about. But I know you do these all the time, and I know you get all these different podcasts, and they have you. But the reason I'm here is because, well, I do things differently. I come from the world of wrestling. We've had the WWE on my platform, and I have to give you an introduction. I don't quite have the vocals that you certainly do, but I'm going to do it because my chat's going to want to see this. You're like, what have I gotten myself into? But for those that are listening and watching here in prime time on the brightest lights, the biggest stage, we have the honor to introduce one of the greatest female vocalists of all time. And I'm going to do it in the way that I do it because, in the words of Def Leppard frontman Joe Elliott, let's get rocked, baby, and start this show off here in style on Sportzwire Radio, the number one global radio station where all music and wrestling matters. So with that, without further ado, here on the Sports Report, the number one global sports show. She is the lead vocalist for the legendary band Femme Fatale, Miss Lorraine Lewis. My friend, how are we doing?
That was the most fun I have had in weeks. You
glad
are amazing. Reverend Tom, I'm so effing happy to be here with you today. Thank you so much for inviting me. Thank you for that beautiful, warm welcome.
I usually do war chants because in wrestling, that's kind of my thing. But I figured you don't have much time. You're a really important person. And, you know, my niche is in the world of the underground wrestling circuit. And that's kind of like the calling to start. But I didn't want to do it because I would have added another 2 more minutes. But, you know, you are a busy person. And I wanted to at least give you the intro that some people have liked on here. Mark Farner of Grand Funk Railroad was like, wow, just keep doing it. I had Doug Pinnick of King's X was like, you're going to sound like James Hetfield one day. And my mom will actually tune into this one because she also sings like you. So, you know, that'll be a funny conversation to start. But thank you for being here. It's an absolute honor to have you. And thank you for all that you've done for the music business as well.
Thank you. I'm really honored and grateful to be here. And I love your lamb choppies that you got.
Yes, the mutton chops. That's my hook in wrestling. It's kind of been my thing. It's, you know, gotten me to talk with you and, you know, go into music. And, you know, that's my pitch is the mutton chops and, you know, the intro. And, you know, I don't want to go. I know you do TV casting and such, but on my platform, we've had some interesting moments. But I want to talk about you because for those that are listening and watching here, Lorraine Lewis, you have had quite a year, especially when it comes to some new music. And I want to talk about something else that you're working on. Currently, you have a new single you're also working on in addition to what we've had earlier this year. And you have a video that is going to see none other than Mr. Steve Brown of Trickster in it. And I want to talk about that. I'm going to put it up on the screen, kind of the preview on Instagram, and set the tables for us, Lorraine, and what we can expect here coming up with some new music.
Well, thank you so much for everything. I just actually got my last edit of the video last night around
Okay.
midnight. I needed to deliver it to the record company yesterday, to Cleopatra Records. I'm newly
Yes.
signed to them. And so I was just so excited to get the edit. It looks great. I thumbs up all the way. So I delivered it to Cleopatra. And yes, the video and the new single Bad Love is the name of the
Yep.
song. And the video and single will be dropping next week, October
Wow.
October 29th. Yes,
My
we are
brother's
all.
birthday. Wow, what a small world. That's my brother's birthday
Oh,
next Wednesday. Wow.
so
Really
cool.
cool.
Your brother is a Scorpio.
Yeah, well, he's an interesting fellow. He's in another country to begin with, and he's on a hospital bed at the moment. So,
Oh, well,
it's one of those things. Yeah.
him happy birthday for me. And
Yes.
yes, October 29th is when the video and single are dropping. The name of the song is called Bad Love. The song was written with myself, Steve Brown, and David Julian. Steve Brown plays guitar, rhythm guitar, and David Julian plays rhythm guitar on the track. And we also are featuring Bumblefoot.
Oh,
Bumblefoot.
yeah, of course, Guns N' Roses, of course,
Yes,
absolutely.
so
Bumblefoot. He
Bumblefoot.
actually, I'm from New York, and years ago there was this girl I knew that got guitar lessons from Ron Paul, the Bumblefoot.
Yes.
So I actually have a connection in a way, not through me, but there was a girl I knew like 20 years ago when I was a kid that got guitar lessons from Bumblefoot, which was a big deal because at the time he was in Guns N' Roses, so that was like wow.
That's a really big deal. And I'm super honored and grateful that he's on the track. And I mean, his solo is sick. I
Yeah.
mean, it's so sick. It's gorgeous. It's layered and just juicy and delicious. So I can't wait for people to hear the track. The chorus, the opening line of the chorus is, "Your red flag is on fire. Don't pull me into the flame. To call you a liar, but this bad love."
You would definitely fit well in the wrestling world. That definitely sounds like something I've had on my platform over these past few years. So that definitely sounds like, I'm sure, something I'll be on my show after you come on. Red flags and fire. Yeah, that sounds like my platform. We have a guy that comes on here, comes on a red screen, and he lights up, and his name is Tafu. That would be exactly that lyric for him, Daniel Tafu. He's on, actually, he'll be talking about tomorrow, and that'll be What a Small World. There you go.
Well, I love it. Well, the song, Steve and I were working on this song, and that lyric just kind of, it just came to me, that lyric, because with relationships, I mean, I've been married a bunch of times, and
Yeah, I've heard.
I look at red flags and I ignore them all the time. That's just kind of my thing. It's like, oh,
I wish everybody, listen, we all have those moments, but I'm curious about something, and I showed it on the screen. I want to put your website, which we'll do that in a minute. I do things a little differently, but you've worked with this year Joel Hoekstra. You've worked with this year George Lynch, who's always been one of my all-time favorite guitarists, especially Lynch Mob, Dokken. He worked with my friend Doug Pinnick of King's X, KXM, and you've got Steve Brown and Bumblefoot, Ron Thal. So I'm curious in all these. I know you did a lot back in the day, but these guitarists, it's in fours. They always say it comes in threes, but you've had it in fours. So what's it like working with these different guitarists, and what maybe some of the similarities or differences that they've brought to the table for you in these songs we're gonna have heard and also hear coming up with Bad Love?
Well, a couple of things. First of all, Steve Brown is producing the album. So Steve and I together is what, that the door has been open to all of these amazing musicians. A lot of it is working with Steve, because Steve
Absolutely.
is an amazing producer.
Oh,
And
yeah, absolutely. Def Leppard. I mean, he's worked with Def Leppard. Ace Frehley, God rest his soul. I mean, he's worked with some unbelievable talents.
Absolutely. So, it was last year that Steve reached out to me. He was just coming off the success of the 10,000 volts.
Yeah, it did really well. It charted like number 20 or something like that. It did really well.
Great songs. That and Cherry Medicine I loved off the album.
Yeah.
Classic Ace, but in 2024, it was great.
Yep.
So just so lucky that Steve reached out to me. Steve and I were label mates back in the day on MCA.
Yes, right, because the first two Trickster albums were on MCA. That's correct. Yes. You were on there with self-titled Femme Fatale back in 88, 89, sure.
Yes. So, and we've also done the cruises together. We've known each other a long time. And so he reached out to me and said, hey, let's do an album. And I said, let's go. So the first song was Living Like There's No Tomorrow.
Yes. I have that. I'm going to show in a minute here. Absolutely.
Yeah, he had the chorus ready to go. I immediately was like, oh, this is such a great anthem. And it just spoke to me. And then with everything that had gone on in the previous months before we started working together. And so, I mean, I think that that's a great compliment. Thank you.
Yeah.
But I'm a belter. I really look at myself more as an entertainer and a performer more than a singer
Well,
singer.
that's in wrestling. That's what, I have had on 1,000 wrestlers, and that's, I've had the WWE on here, and that's kind of the thing. I think to be successful today, it's so different than back in the late 80s, because I think you have to be a triple threat almost. You obviously have done that with, television casting, obviously OnlyFans, and also, your music, which got you here. And I think it's kind of the same thing in the wrestling world, because I have so many of them come on, and they do different things, whether it's Twitch streaming, whether it's, acting or music. And I think it's kind of the same in that sense. And I think the song kind of shows or showcases Lorraine Lewis in 2025 that you aren't just this musician that's a great singer. Yes, you are, but you're also somebody that's, done a lot in giving, women opportunities and others, Netflix as well. I know you worked on a show recently, not too long ago, but also, OnlyFans and empowering people. And I think that's to me the moral of the song. And I think why it's, resonating with a lot of people and such.
Well, I think also, look, I'm not married. I don't have a boyfriend. It's just me in the world, right? I have to take care of myself.
Sure.
So, and because of that, I do a lot of different things like your wrestlers do. Like
Yep.
I'm everywhere. I still work in television and I'm doing all of these things because I want to support myself. And also I still have big dreams. I mean, I'm not done yet.
I know. And you know what? I think today is such a different world than, back in the 80s. It's like you can do anything, and you've done really well with that. And I also want to put your website up here, because obviously it's where you can get in touch with Lorraine and follow all the great things that she's doing. We're very honored to have her on here. She's a very busy person. The fact that she's here on this platform, we are certainly grateful. And you'll want to go to LorraineLewisRocks.co. You can see more about Femme Fatale. They are back out there living like there's no tomorrow. Yeah, we're definitely not waiting for the big one. Lorraine is here. She's also got some merchandise. You'd like to buy the live album that came out through F&A Records. That was with the historic tour with Cheap Trick. That was when they had two massive songs. The Flame was massive. They had a Beatles cover. In fact, I was just listening to that today on Sirius XM. That was actually the big 80s countdown of 1988, and that was actually one of their comeback tracks at the moment. So that's another thing you want to check out. You got that famous tour, OnlyFans, Cameo. Some of my wrestlers are on Cameo. I'm not going on Cameo, but Lorraine Lewis is, and you can see some of her amazing work with Waiting for the Big One, Falling In and Out of Love. Rebel was one of my favorites. Touch and Go was another one. Check it all out there. We're honored to have her on here for a minute. I wanted to ask you about something else about your music, because you actually worked with somebody else I know, and Scott Gutierrez. He's actually an engineer, done a lot of work with Dr. Dre.
You know Scott?
Yeah, I remember. I know a lot of people. I have 200,000 emails. I have 5,000 contacts. I've done well in life. My mom would say probably not, but Scott Gutierrez, you worked on with some of your new tracks, especially Living Like There's No Tomorrow. And talk to me about what he brought to you, because he worked with The Game and Dr. Dre. So what was he like?
Tupac.
Yes, in fact, he was Tupac's last session, if I'm not mistaken, right?
He was. Yes, I mean, Scott is a really good friend of mine. We go way back, decades. I don't even know how we met, to be honest with you. I have no idea. Oh, I know how we met through Paul Weezer.
Okay.
Was a DJ in Seattle.
Okay.
I don't even know how it all happened. It's always been like that. It's like, back in the day, you'd be out on the Sunset Strip and all of a sudden you're at some mansion party up in the hills. I mean, that's just how Hollywood is. Everybody connects and hangs out with each other. So I worked with Scott. I worked on a bunch of solo stuff decades ago. And then when I needed an engineer for this, I mean, we've stayed in touch, obviously, and we're good friends. And when I needed an engineer to get the vocals done, I called Scott because I'm comfortable working with him. He knows how to push me. I go to his studio, is in his place. I'm very comfortable there. He's got the cat that hangs out with us. And, we basically just did the tracks together. and then bundled it all up and sent it to Steve to kind of not really sort out. Scott did a lot of the sorting out and put a mix together. And then he'd send it to Steve. And Steve was always adamant to give him as many ad libs as possible. So I would make sure I had some crazy ad libs, and then he put it all together, mixed and mastered, or mixed it, and then he sent it over to Bruno. What's Bruno's last name? I'm forgetting right now.
Yeah, I know Charlie Bracco worked also with you on the song as well. So I know that was another name you worked with. Oh, because I've got a chance to listen to it several times, so I know that was a big thing.
Well, Bruno does an amazing job of mixing and mastering, and so I just everything is going through him. It's that we get it done, we send it to Steve. Steve sends it to Bruno, and then it comes back to us. And
Bruno, I think it's Bruno Ravel, if I'm not mistaken.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Yes, and he's just so great at what he does, and I've gotten so many compliments on Living Like There's No Tomorrow and Bad Love, just the mix and the mat, like it just sounds so great. He's amazing at
it's very anthemic. It was so fascinating that you worked with a hip hop producer on the track, but I think in terms of what you were trying to accomplish, it had that big, almost like you're in that setting. And I think that's what he brought to the table. And obviously a guy that's worked on the type of work that he's worked on, I could see why you brought him to the table. The musicianship, I think, in addition to what the ear that Scott brings, I think was brought out in the track.
Well, and also Scott is really good at being a cheerleader, number one. He's really good at that. Or when I'm stuck on something, like maybe I thought going into the studio that lyrically it worked, and then sometimes it doesn't work. When you might have been singing it for weeks, and then you get in there and it's like, oh, this kind of sucks. Or this doesn't, like I'm listening to a playback and it's like, that's not how it sounded in my head when I came up with it. So you have to make adjustments, and Scott is really good at adjusting things. A couple of things that we did even recently, and I was it Living Like There's No Tomorrow? I had the lyric sheet, and I cut it up. I cut all the sentences and shuffled them around to see what came back to me.
Really?
Yeah, because it just wasn't flowing right. And by doing that, it allowed it to roll off my tongue better for some, I don't know. It's just a trick that I did that I've heard about doing. Like I think Led Zeppelin did it or something.
Because I think, some musicians used to go and they would do everything in backwards. That was one of the things. People would go, and I think it was the Beatles. They would do the work backwards, and every artist has something that they do that's differently. You have something that a lot of people don't know about, is that you are deaf in your left ear. And I'm curious, as a singer, and when you're out there, whether it's performing live or in the studio, how do you compensate for that? And how is that something that you're able to work off and people wouldn't notice? I'm curious on that for the audience.
Well, a couple of things with that. I was born deaf. It's not something that I acquired, by listening to loud music or anything. I was born this way. So this is my comfort zone. But if you right now, Tom, will shut one of your ears and talk to me, and you will hear yourself resonating right in here. Like you hear it here instead of out in the room. And I would challenge you to do that, because that's the way that I hear all the time. So I know exactly when I'm off pitch. I always know when I'm off pitch. I know when I'm on. I have really great pitch because of it. But so it's never really hindered me. And as far as, having people not really know, a couple of things is it's actually, I have a deformed left ear. So it's something called microtia. And so I have like a folded ear. I'll show you if you want to see it.
I think, the reason I bring it up, because I do get a lot of wrestlers on. And one of the things in wrestling, I know there's a lot of differences, is that there's
cauliflower ear.
Yes, cauliflower ear, but also when they're in the ring, the referee, they have a certain amount of time in the ring, and the referee sometimes will point, or they'll do a hand gesture, or there'll be something they'll communicate to say, let's finish up. So it's important to have that hearing. And I think for you, I think it's very fascinating that as a singer and a musician that you have to overcome that to be able to do what you do best. And I haven't really heard you talk about that much. And I wanted to, because I have a different platform than what you're used to going to. I think people might want to hear that. That's why I was curious, literally.
Well, a couple of things. So one of the things with just the way that it looks in general, because I'm just going to show you. So
yeah.
this
I've seen far worse on my platform, Lorraine. I've seen chairs, blood. Trust me, it's a day in the park, you know.
So it's kind of like a little Martian ear, but I have there's no opening. It's just
sure.
But I think that how I've overcome it, like I said, I hear really well this way. But I make sure when I'm on stage, like with my in-ear monitor, it's only me in the monitor. Like I don't put the rest of the band. I don't put other guitars. I don't put anything, just me. I might put guitars in the floor monitors just so I can feel it a little bit, but
right.
It's all about me. I just need to hear me, you know, and that's how I do it. And I just rock the house, go out, do what I know what to do, which is entertain. And
you do a great job. I mean, listen, you know, and I appreciate it. My mom sings, and my mom, you know, has been singing since I'm a baby. Unfortunately, I don't have the musical genes, but that's how I was conceived. Obviously, you know, my parents, you know, were musicians when my dad was alive, and my mom sings, so I see a lot of similarities in you in that sense. Which I wanted to ask you. I mean, so we know we have songs out. I mean, you've got another video that you're working on. And do you want to go out there and perform and have some shows? You know, I just had on the guys from, you know, King's X, Doug Pinnick, and they just finished some dates. And I've had on a lot of musicians this year. And, you know, some are playing like what you call fly-in dates, like the guys from Great White. I know you covered recently the Angels song and Call It Rock and Roll. But now that you've got a little bit more of an arsenal this year, do you want to take Femme Fatale out there and play some shows and such?
Yes, please. Yes, I'm jonesing to get back on the road. I mean, it's been too long. I mean, thankfully, I mean, there's been some shows along the way. I mean, I was just flown out to Las Vegas 2 weeks ago for a private party for some promoters from Peru, and it was myself, Stacey Blades from LA Guns.
Yes, I had on Phil Lewis like 2 months ago. Yeah, so
Phil Soussan from Ozzy Osbourne. You know, he wrote Shot in the Dark. He's a very dear friend of mine. And then Troy Patrick Farrell on drums. So I flew to them. We did a sound check, and then we performed that night. I mean, it was just boom, boom, boom. So that it was wild. It was wild.
That's how a musician.
Yeah, we pulled it off. It was great. It was super great fun. I loved it, and I can't wait to do more. But I'm jonesing to get out on the road.
And that might be a promoter now calling to say you've got to go out there and, you know, play for another day. But we're here with Lorraine Lewis. She's on Instagram. She's also on YouTube. You can check out some of her new music. We're here with her for about another 5 or 10 more minutes. She's a very busy person. We're honored to have her on here. My name is the Reverend Tom Bryce. And like, share, and subscribe. I will give you something shortly. But I did want to ask you, with the news about MTV and they're ceasing their music part of the channels, you were on remote control. Obviously, Adam Sandler was a big deal. And what is your thoughts about MTV now going away from music at the end of the year?
Well, music, they've gone away from music.
I know, like over 15 years ago. I know the music awards are a scam. Even that, you know.
There's nothing better than a video and MTV. I mean, that was such a special time to be able to see your rock idols doing videos and doing silly stuff sometimes, because not everybody, you know, was lucky enough to work with a Marty Callner, right? So
yep, God rest his soul. Yep, I actually have a connection with Marty Callner. I had the band Zebra on, Randy Jackson, and they worked with Marty Callner.
Yes.
So I knew him very well.
Let me just say, Marty, very, very instrumental person in my life, changed my life, you know, did those 2 videos for me. Actually, he did
Whitesnake, Aerosmith, Twisted Sister. I mean, he did like some of the biggest videos back in the day.
He was known for making women beautiful. That was one of his things. Tawny Katane on the
Yep.
Jaguar, you
Yep.
know, I mean,
David Coverdale. Well, that led David Coverdale to marrying her, obviously.
yes, yeah. So that was Marty, and Marty is who I went to when I created the show X Wives of Rock.
Yep.
Look through my phone, like who do
I
I know?
remember actually watching that because you had Bobby Brown was on there of Warrant, Janie Lane's ex-wife. You had Cherise Neal, obviously Vince Neal's ex-wife, and they unfortunately their Skylar died. That was a terrible thing that happened years ago. And you had Tommy Lee's sister Athena, who was married to James Kotek of the Scorpions. I remember it like a book. I remember it. That was like 11 years ago.
It was a great show.
Yeah.
These girls really delivered. It was a great show, and I'm besties with Cherise. I was just on the phone with her about an hour before. Yeah, she lives here in Palm Springs. We're really, really good friends. But yeah, I mean, wait, where did we go? Where did we go?
I think we're talking about Marty Callner and just an MTV and how, like, you know, back in the day, you were, I mean, you know, waiting for the big one, you know, falling in out of love, you know, so many people saw MTV. You were a part of Remote Control. And now to me, like, it's almost a part of people are dying, I think, because of MTV no longer airing music. They shouldn't even call themselves MTV. And that's kind of why I was curious, because the news just happened a few weeks ago, what you thought, because you were such a part of that era back in the late 80s.
I was. They were so great to me. They flew me out on promotional tour. I got to be there with Charlie Benatti,
who just got married to Carla Harvey of the Butcher Babies.
Yes, exactly. And Dizzy Dean Davidson, who is still a good friend of mine. I mean, it was so great. And I almost won. I almost beat Charlie.
I know you were doing well, and then you were ahead in the beginning of it, and then Charlie kind of. I think one of the lines was, "Well, Charlie, I didn't know you were that intelligent." Then Adam Sandler comes out in the middle of the episode. Who would have guessed that he would be as big as he was? You know,
isn't that incredible to think about? He comes out in a smoker's jacket. I mean, he was just a kid.
Yeah, he was, I think, like 21 years old or something like that.
He hadn't done any of the stuff, but like everybody on that show was sort of destined for something, you know?
Yeah.
And to have been a part of that is really special. I wish people that don't know MTV, like I knew MTV or you knew MTV, I really wish that they could experience that, what that was like. I wish people could experience what it was like to walk down Sunset Boulevard on a Friday and Saturday night when Poison and, you know,
the Sunset Strip. I mean, I've had on, you know, Mark Kendall of Great White. I've had on, you know, Phil Lewis of LA Guns. I've had a lot of these bands on Kicks. I know you did the M3 Festival a couple of years ago with them. And, you know, there was something about that era, you know, the Sunset Strip. And, you know, I don't think rock music has what it did. I mean, you know, if I were to ask you, when I think about what you did in the late 80s and I see some of the female front women today, I think of Lizzie Hale of Hailstorm. I think of Amy Lee of Evanescence. I think of the new front person for Linkin Park. I think about Christina Scabby of Lacuna Coil. You want to throw in the Butcher Babies, fine. I mean, all these different people. If I were to say to you that you were a role model and a trailblazer for some of the artists today that they don't even think about it. I mean, think about back in the late 80s. It was really you. There was Doro, Lita Ford. You know, I wouldn't consider Hart and Pat Benatar in that hard rock, heavy metal as range as you. But if I were to say to you that Lorraine Lewis of Femme Fatale is a trailblazer and a role model, what would you say to that?
I would say, wow, I got a little tear in my eye.
Well, don't cry on me, because you will have a wrestler come out of here and say, "What's wrong with you, Lorraine?" But no, I mean, but no, I think that you are, because of what your legacy is. You know,
thank you. That does touch me, and I appreciate you recognizing that, because there was no roadmap. There was no, I mean, granted, there was, you know, Linda Ronstadt, you know, people like that.
Yeah, but it wasn't like you, Lita, you know, Doro, you know, a lot of people would know Doro as well. You know, there's certain people that I think when we look at today, it's almost no problem. You know, Lizzie Hale of Hailstorms out there at the Ozzy tribute. You know, I mentioned bands like Lacuna Coil, and, you know, Arch Enemy. I think about, you know, Evanescence, certainly. I mean, there's, you know, Linkin Park has, you know, a woman replacing Chester Bennington. I mean, there's no doubt, you know, but that weren't as heavy. But my point is that when I think about harder rock, heavier metal, certainly the Butcher Babies, you know, there's a lot of people I could think of, you know, Taylor Momsensen even, you know, there's just, I look at, to me, it's you, Lita Ford that are like, to me, the Trailblazers. I just the way I see it as a fan of harder rock and heavy metal and all these artists that they didn't have to break doors down. They didn't have to go out there and, oh, she's the chick singer. No, you and Lita, and even you, I would say, had it more of a difficult time than Lita, because Lita had Sharon Osbourne was her manager. She had the Runaways, but you had to go out there and just, you were out there doing on your own, more or less,
I was a girl from Albuquerque, New Mexico that said, I'm going to LA and I'm going to get a record deal. And that's what I did. And you're right. I mean, it takes a lot of guts. It takes a lot of fire. It takes a lot of confidence. It takes a lot of delusion, to leave home and go, I'm going to get a record deal. And it's exactly what I did. And I feel so fortunate to have gone down the roads that I have gone down and been in the rooms that I have been in, and, managed by Howard Kaufman, and knew Irving Azoff and Gerald Busby, and worked with Marty Callner. I mean, these are names that but kids coming up or young, like, they don't have a clue about what iconic figures these men were in the music business. And, to address like what you said about me and Lita and the differences in a way is they weren't playing women on radio.
No.
Then they would play one woman a day, one. So when I would go, and I've told this story before, but I need to say it again. I would walk into a radio station on a promotional tour, and if I walked in and saw Lita's poster,
you're done.
You weren't going to get that station.
You're done.
If I walked in and I saw Guns N' Roses and maybe Cinderella, I had a chance to get that station. And that's how it was. And it's very, very different. I don't know, if Lizzie thinks that she's had a hard time of it, or Evanescence, if they feel that they've, had roadblocks that they had to overcome. I'm sure that they do. But for me, back in the 80s,
but you broke those doors down. My point is that, as we're here with the legendary Lorraine Lewis for a few more minutes, she is the front woman for the band Femme Fatale. They have a brand new single that is out. You should certainly go watch it or like it, share it, whatever. Live like there's no tomorrow. She's also working on some other music. My name is the Reverend Tom Bryce. Your voice figure to be literal music. But the point is that they didn't have to break the doors down that you had to. Yes, I'm sure, it's different, with women than men. People do look, they think, oh, yes, you're a beautiful woman, great stuff. But I look at it more like what you did musically. That's maybe more important because of 30, 40 years from back, waiting for the big one, in and out of love, all that stuff. Rebel, which was out there. Another video was MTV played a little bit. I don't think those artists would have had that opportunity if it wasn't for somebody that came first in harder rock and heavy metal. And you were there. You may not have known it back in the late 80s, but today, those artists have sold tens and millions of albums. They had to go and deal with not the opportunities or the roadblocks you had to. There was somebody that had to pave the way, and you did that. That's my point.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I appreciate you recognizing that. And I think that there are some people that agree with you and feel that way. And a lot of those people are, like my relatives.
Well, you know what? Well, your relatives are right. I know your brother, has played bass with you. But, speaking of Trailblazers, I have something for you. I want to give you. Well, I have a few more minutes. Yes, I do things differently, and I want to, because you definitely deserve this honor. Because for those that are listening and watching here in prime time on the Brightest Lights, the biggest stage, congratulations! You are now the newest member of my Hall of Fame. I have a Hall of Fame, and Mark Farner of Grand Funk Railroad's in the Hall of Fame. I have Mr. Doug Pinnick of King's X. I have Symphony X. A lot of other bands, Kicks. Mr. Brian Forsythe was here to accept it. Phil Lewis of LA Guns, and I think you deserve. And the WWE wrestlers are in my Hall of Fame, and I want you to have this. We'll give it to Andrea. Thank you, Andrea, for the opportunity. And you are a Hall of Famer. You should really be in like the Heavy Metal Hall of Fame. They do have one now, and I think you should be in that Hall of Fame. But to get the balls still rolling, I think you should be in my Hall of Fame first. And congratulations.
Thank you. I am so honored. I haven't received anything like this
Oh, I
before.
knew that. I actually knew that, and I actually knew that, and I knew that this would be a great segue to put you in this Hall of Fame, because I know that you will be in Hall of Fame, whether it's in the New Mexico Music Hall of Fame, whether it's in, like I said, the Heavy Metal Hall of Fame. There is one now, and there are other Hall of Fames out there, I'm sure, and I think that you should be in, because I think that the body of work of what you've done, behind the camera, obviously the MTV work, Femme Fatale, you're back out there, you fronted a band, and I'm not going to say it starts with a V, and no, not the Flying V, but I take a Flying V over them. But the point is, even your own empowerment with OnlyFans, a lot of female wrestlers have done that too. So I think that all the stuff you've done, you're definitely a trailblazer, which I got to ask you. I only have a couple more minutes with you, but I got to ask you this question. I never have heard anybody ask you this question. I get a lot of people on here, as I've noticed, a lot of wrestlers I've had on different bands. I've also had some up and coming people, and you have done so much in your life, let alone your career. And what advice would you have for anybody that's aspiring to, whether it be in your shoes or be an entertainer, whatever it is? What advice would you have for someone?
Well, first of all, I would say I don't like giving advice because I don't like taking advice.
Okay.
So that's number one. But I think the most important thing is really figure out what you want. What do you want? What do you really want as an artist, as a performer, as an entertainer, whatever it may be? And then listen to your gut about it. Like, listen to yourself. Don't ask this person, oh, do you like this song? Is this good? Oh, is this what I should wear? Like, no, just look inside yourself and answer the questions on your own. Like, you really need to not listen to what people have to say, because everybody is basing their advice and their opinions off of their own life, which has nothing to do with you. Nothing at all. Their own experiences. So they might have some weird trip in their head that they're going to lay on you to do it this way because they experienced something crazy, right? So we really just listen to ourselves and listen to our gut. That your gut will never really steer you wrong. And then stop with any of the negativity that's going on in your brain and focus on good, happy, positive things about yourself. And, before I go out on stage, I do like this kind of gesture. And
I've seen you live, perform on YouTube and such. So I mean, I've known who you are before you came to my platform. So I kind of had that energy that you bring. Doug Pinnick kind of said the same things. He always said, be positive. He always talked a lot about that. I think that's good advice. I was wondering, are there any bands you would like to tour with that you haven't or play with? I know you did, Monsters of Rock. I know you've done M3 with a band I'm not going to name, but I know you did Cheap Trick, obviously, a tremendous honor. So they did that 70 show theme song. But is there any bands that you haven't got a chance to play with that maybe you would like to, that maybe we'll see or just anywhere in the future?
Well, this is what I will say. I'll say a couple of things. I mean, I've been talking to some promoters about some dates out of the country next year. So hopefully I'll be able to drop some news about that very soon. Okay. I also have a collaboration single that is going to be coming out in February or March with people are going to be really surprised and go, wow.
I'm in wrestling. Nothing surprises me. You have no idea. I have to tell you, Lorraine, I know you are a rock goddess and a legend, but I will tell you what I have seen on my platform. In 7 years I'm doing this. I am here not because, I'm a rock, interviewer, because I got into wrestling and I, got thousands of subscribers through that. I just, so nothing would surprise me. So if you told me X, Y, and Z, I would be not shocked. I mean, you talk to somebody else and they probably say, oh, well, me, I wouldn't be shocked. I'm just going to tell you that right up front.
Well, I will say originally I had been working on a song with Lou Gramm. And
I heard about, and obviously Foreigner, going into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. This is he's doing one more, go around with them. That's what, maybe you should wait for that to come out, because then let them get in the Hall of Fame, and then maybe the sales will go up.
Well, they are in the Hall of Fame now.
Yeah.
I remember talking. We were having phone calls every Wednesday.
Right.
His camp reached out to me on Instagram because I would answer a question on my live Q&A every Sunday at 5 p.m. Pacific on Instagram. People would ask me, who would you want to sing with? Like, who do you want to perform with? My answers were always the same. Number one was Lou Gramm. Number 2 was Paul Rogers from Bad Company. And number 3 was David Lee Roth. So my answers were always the same. And his camp reached out to me and said, what song would you want to do with Lou if you could do something with him? And I was like, is this for reals? Okay, long story short, we started communicating. They got my phone number. They said, Lou wants to talk to you Friday at 1:00. Can you be available? And we started having conversations every Wednesday. We did this for months, trying to figure out what song we were going to do. We finally decided on Heroes by David Bowie. Hollywood Vampires have also recorded it.
Yep.
Sounded great. And then him and his son, Matt, decided that they didn't want to release it after all because they felt that too many people had recorded it. So they've talked about me going out to Rochester in November, potentially to re-record some things, and we'll see what happens with that. But in the meantime, somebody else stepped in to do the song with me, and it is done. All I'm waiting to do is Joel is going to be putting guitar on the track, and Joel has played on a few tracks on the album. But I'm hoping that song is going to come out in February or March, and I want to go on tour with that guy.
I know.
But yeah, so there's a lot of exciting things going on, and I do want to remind you that the new single "Bad Love" is dropping next week.
Yes,
October 29th. On Cleopatra Records. It will be blasted all over my social media. So yeah,
and I'm gonna make sure to put the clip for it. Because I do things a little differently, and I know Cleopatra Records very well. I've spoken to them. They know who I am, so we'll take care of that. And I also want to ask you about one more track you worked on, because this is really one of my all-time favorite guitarists. That is George Lynch, and I got a chance. You covered this. Obviously, Neil Sedaka famously wrote this. "Love Will Keep Us Together." I thought, what a great rendition! What a song, what a solo from Georgie Boy himself. And what was that like, that you worked on this earlier this year?
Well, this is something that Cleopatra Records put together, right? So they gave me an option. They gave me 2 choices of songs to do. And back in the day, before I even left Albuquerque, I was not only in a top 40 band, but I did a lounge act, right?
Yeah, I can see that song. Yeah, I can definitely hear "Love Will Keep Us Together." Yeah, I can see that. I can see it. I can see it.
Dad and the Rose, by Bette Midler. Those, like, my mom and dad would come in, and those are like their favorite songs. So it was a no-brainer for me to do the vocal on this song. And so George and I were not in the studio together.
Yeah, I know it's different than it was. You send the track, and you play it from your phone, or your Tracy Guns does the LA Guns albums now through his phone. I know it's not like you're in the studio together, but still, it's George.
I miss that. I mean, I miss that. That's just like missing MTV, right? Like,
I know. I had Phil Lewis on, and he was like, Tracy just does the tracks with me, and he does it through his phone, and and then there's some artists that like you, and I agree. I had Mark Farner on. He just worked on his new album with Mark Slaughter, and it was like he came to the studio. So I kind of think you need that feel, but it's a different world now.
It's
with the
different world. I really miss that. I love having a producer in the studio with me. I love hearing the control button go off and on. Like, give me another take. Or
I just had on. It's funny you said I had Josie Scott of the ex-Saliva singer last week, and we were talking about producers and how they have that ability. There's something about going into a studio, and the knob, and you see in there, they're sitting there, back in the day, they sit there with a cigarette on, and the famous, I'm from New York, I'm from Brooklyn, New York, and it was the record plant, about the record studio, the Hit Factory, like those were iconic. You're looking at the liner notes, and you'd want to say, hey, that was recorded there, and it was mastered. And I had Brian Force, I talk about Tom Werman, and talk about all those producers, and it's a different thing. But you still work with George, who I think is one of the greatest guitarists of all time.
Yes, I'm so honored to have that track with us together. Like, it just kind of blows my mind. And and that's one of the great things about being signed to Cleopatra. They're feeding me certain things. They like me being on the label, apparently, because they're feeding me these different opportunities. I have something else that has come in that I'm going to be involved in.
Don't say it. Trust me, I'm in wrestling. If you shouldn't say it, don't say it. Because I've had.
Yeah,
Let me tell
I
you, I'm gonna do it a little differently than the average, Joe you'll talk to after this. I'm gonna tell you no, don't do it. Because A, I want you to come back on my platform and talk about it. But B, don't incriminate yourself. That's what I've learned in my.
yeah, I'm just gonna wait because I am such an open book. All the like, I
Yeah, I
just
got that. Well, I mean, there's an open book and there's an open book, but I tell you what, we're going to be excited about the new music. I'm very excited that you came on here. I know you have to run, but I want to ask you before we get to close, is there anything else you want to promote or talk about? I want to put your website up here one more time, but is there anything else that you'd like to discuss that people should know about and such?
Yes, I would like people to know about OnlyFans TV. I just
Yeah,
actually got my own channel on OnlyFans TV yesterday. It just dropped.
congratulations.
Thank you. And this is a safe for work platform. It's no nudity. It's just basically a behind the
Oh,
scenes.
whatever you want. Listen, in wrestling, there's a woman, Mandy Rose, who was the WWE Women's NXT champion for a year, and she left the WWE and she made more money in OnlyFans in 1 year than she did in her entire wrestling career. So I know all about OnlyFans,
Yes, well,
you know.
but this is OnlyFans TV, so it's
Okay.
safe. It's safe for work. It's not like my VIP page. My
Okay.
VIP page is different.
Yeah, I'm sure some of the wrestlers will definitely want to now go and subscribe to that. I have no doubt, Lorraine. They will.
But I will say the OnlyFans TV is totally free to subscribe. But it's more, it's getting to know me. The day-to-day stuff. What
Sure.
me in the studio, me, doing all sorts of different things that you wouldn't expect. I'm racing bumper cars. I'm axe throwing. I mean, there, just things
Well, you
that I.
skydive too. I mean, there's a lot that I think people, you're a TV caster. I mean, you had a really interesting, life. I think that's to me the moral, and that's why Living Like There's No Tomorrow. People should go check it out on Spotify, YouTube. Also, get ready for Bad Love that comes out next week, and Love Will Keep Us Together. I put those links up. People can go check it out. But I think that's really to me the moral of the story of you is that you're a jack of all trades and a master at all of them.
Thank you. Oh, that's very generous. But here's one thing I'm not good at. I do not cook.
You know what? I have never cooked once in my life. That's why my mother doesn't like me. She only wants me to talk about musicians. She's like, I don't want to hear about wrestlers on my platform anymore. I don't care. Yeah, I've had the WWE on here. Okay, they're like, nope, I don't want to hear it. You can't do this. I can't do this. I got plenty of flaws. I have mutton chops. I actually do news. I actually have to go in a little while to go do a radio show. My background's very unique as well. I've done politics with 50,000 listeners a day, but I love different things, and and that's the moral. But I'm sure people would still go on OnlyFans to watch you attempt to cook. That's, I'm sure, the running joke that I would say, but they probably would. Listen, I have a bunch of wrestlers on it. I was telling people you were going to come on. They're like, really? They're like, finally, someone that doesn't look like a caveman. But no.
Well, thank you. You are so charming. I'm so excited to know you. I can't wait to meet you in person.
Well, I'm in New York. I'm in the Big Apple, the city that does sleep. I'm in
I
New
might
York.
come out to New York for New Year's Eve. I was just thinking about what am I going to do for New Year's Eve. So
I don't think you're going to be here in New York City. I have never once seen the ball drop. I guess it's like there's like a million people there. Why would I want to?
Let's go.
Well, you're going to perform there, I'm sure. That's what we'll see. But I will tell you what, we're going to definitely see you out and perform. I'm sure we're going to see you at some gigs. I'm very excited about Femme Fatale. I'm very excited about the musicians that you've worked with. And I'm very excited for our audience that you were in our Hall of Fame. So I want to give you some closing thoughts. You've been way too generous. So anything else you want to plug, share, or say, the floor is yours.
I just want to say I'm just grateful, thankful that people still give a flip about me. I'm multi-layered. I am a million different people from one day to the next, as that song goes.
Yep.
And I have a lot of spunk and personality and vibe and all sorts of things going on all the time that I'm not even talking about yet. So come get to know me on OnlyFans TV, Lorraine Lewis, and get to know me.
Lorraine Lewis Rocks on Instagram as well. I'm going to put that up here on the screen for the audience. You can also check her out, LorraineLewisRocks.co. That's her website. She's also on TikTok. She's also on Facebook. You can see some of her stuff, but really go out and support her music. And we're so grateful to have her. And I do want to take the time, and if I could, before we sign off, to thank all the wrestlers and them for giving me the opportunity to speak with you, because I really don't have any followers without them. You may have many followers on OnlyFans and other places, but my following would not if I would not be here talking to you. And I am every day thankful for them and all the promotions and the companies. I want to thank my mom, because I do remember as a kid growing up in Brooklyn, she had Femme Fatale. I remember the self-titled album. I know I saw it in the CD collection. I saw
What's your
your album.
mom's name?
Sharon. Yeah.
Sharon, you raised a good one, Sharon.
I don't know about that. She's gonna probably say no, but
Sharon Thomas seems hella cool, and behind every good man is a great mom. So great to meet you, Sharon.
The checks in the Lorraine, the checks in the mail, but no, we thank her. She was very excited. She loves when I get the bands on, and she was like, "Oh, Lorraine Lewis." And I was like, "We talked about Femme Fatale," and I thought Rebel was a great song, Touch and Go. I know you did a solo song for Christine Applegate's movie, Don't Tell Mom the Babysitter.
Great
She's
movie.
doing well.
I love that movie.
Great. I remember that movie, but
Such a good movie.
we'll talk about that a different time. But that is
Thank
Lorraine. Check her out on all social media platforms. And thank you, everybody, for tuning in. My name is the Reverend Tom Bryce, your voice figuratively and literally where all music and wrestling matters. If you're here, go follow Lorraine on social media. Thank you, Andrea, for the opportunity. And like, share, and subscribe. And until then, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. On the number one, Global Radio, the Sportswire Radio, where all music and wrestling matters. Thank you so much, everybody. Have a great night.